Hello and welcome to Compliance Briefs on Client Due Diligence with an emphasis in enhanced and simplified due diligence. This compliance brief outlines key enhanced due diligence (EDD) requirements, starting with legal obligations and the measures firms must apply to high-risk relationships. It also covers how to implement customized EDD procedures, obligations for high-risk countries, and managing politically exposed persons, PEPs. Finally, it introduces simplified due diligence (SDD) and when it may be applied under a risk-based approach. Enhanced due diligence is a critical component of a firm's overall client due diligence framework and should be applied to clients, business relationships, or transactions that present a higher risk of money laundering or terrorist financing. Firms are expected to adopt a risk-based approach to determine when EDD is necessary and to what extent it should be applied. As part of this approach, firms should clearly define in their anti-money laundering manual or client acceptance policy the specific categories of clients or scenarios that will trigger the application of EDD measures. This ensures consistency, transparency, and compliance with regulatory expectations. According to legal requirements, enhanced due diligence must be applied in specific high-risk scenarios. These include situations where a firm is transacting with or establishing a business relationship with a natural person or legal entity that is based in, or originates from, a high-risk third country. EDD is also mandatory when dealing with politically exposed persons, as well as in any other case that presents a high risk of money laundering or terrorist financing, as determined by the firm's risk appetite. Additionally, clients associated with citizenship by investment programs must also be subject to EDD measures, due to the elevated risks these programs may pose. When applying enhanced due diligence to high-risk business relationships or transactions, firms must implement a set of robust measures to ensure effective risk mitigation. These include verifying the client's identity and address using independent and reliable sources, and thoroughly examining the client's background, ownership structure, and financial situation. Systematic background checks should be conducted for all high-risk clients. Firms must also confirm that the nature and purpose of the transactions are consistent with the established business relationship. Transaction monitoring should be both increased and tailored to the specific risk profile, with escalation of the approval process for initiating or maintaining high-risk relationships. Ongoing monitoring must be enhanced to detect unusual activity, and firms should verify the size and source of the client's wealth as part of a comprehensive assessment. Enhanced due diligence must be tailored to address specific risk areas identified in a client's profile. A uniform approach is not sufficient when managing higher-risk situations. This slide presents a few examples of high-risk indicators and corresponding EDD measures that firms can apply to mitigate those risks. For instance, non-resident or non-face-to-face clients may require additional identity verification due to the increased risk of impersonation or fraud. Politically exposed persons and high-net-worth clients should be subject to more detailed reviews of their source and size of wealth. Business relationships involving high-risk third countries require more thorough and sophisticated transaction monitoring. In the case of crypto-asset-related activities, firms should gather more detailed information regarding the nature of these activities, the origin and type of crypto assets involved, and consider using blockchain analytic tools. It is important to note that these are only examples, and firms should apply EDD measures based on their own risk assessments and client-specific factors. Moving forward, it is important that we address the identification and management of relationships involving high-risk countries. These are jurisdictions that exhibit strategic deficiencies in their anti-money laundering and counter-financing of terrorism (AML/CFT) frameworks. Common issues in such countries include widespread bribery and corruption, as well as significant financial irregularities, which increase the risk of money laundering and terrorist financing. An official list of high-risk third countries is maintained and published by the European Commission in the Official Journal of the EU. However, firms are also encouraged to consult the FATF list, which identifies both high-risk and other monitored jurisdictions. Using both sources helps ensure a comprehensive and risk-based approach to client due diligence, especially when establishing or maintaining cross-border business relationships. A firm should also remain vigilant of the risks associated with other countries and conduct a country risk assessment, which can be incorporated into the firm-wide risk assessment. This ensures that potential exposures are identified and managed proactively, particularly in relation to evolving geopolitical and regulatory environments. Lastly, firms should be alerted to the regular updates concerning the EU high-risk third countries list, the FATF list, and the EU tax list, which are circulated to all members, firms, and compliance officers in the form of compliance circulars. Staying informed of these updates is essential to maintaining a robust and dynamic risk management framework. Now that we have looked at what constitutes a high-risk country, let's turn to how firms must respond when engaging with clients linked to these jurisdictions. The law requires enhanced due diligence measures to be applied in such cases not as a formality, but as a critical layer of protection. These measures include collecting additional information on both the client and any beneficial owners, gaining a clearer understanding of the intended nature and purpose of the business relationship, and verifying the source of funds and source of wealth. It is also essential to understand the reasons behind any intended or completed transactions. Furthermore, senior management must be involved in the decision to establish or continue such relationships, ensuring a higher level of oversight. Finally, firms must step up their monitoring efforts. This means increasing the frequency and depth of transaction reviews to detect any unusual patterns early. In addition to high-risk countries, certain client profiles require special attention, one of the most critical being politically exposed persons, or PEPs. A PEP is an individual who holds a prominent public function, along with their close family members and known associates. These clients present a higher risk due to their potential exposure to corruption or abuse of power. When a business relationship is established or continues with a PEP or a related person, specific enhanced due diligence measures must be applied. These include obtaining senior management approval before proceeding, as well as taking adequate steps to verify the size and source of the client's wealth and funds. Firms are also required to carry out ongoing enhanced monitoring of the relationship to detect any unusual activity over time. Lastly, background checks screening should be performed to identify PEP status early and maintain compliance throughout the client lifecycle. While enhanced due diligence is used for higher risk scenarios, there are far less cases where simplified due diligence may be applied. However, it is important to emphasize that this should only occur in exceptional circumstances, and always on a case-by-case basis. Before applying SDD, firms must ensure that the rationale is properly documented, typically within the AML manual or the client acceptance policy. This ensures transparency and that the decision can be reviewed and justified if needed. Even when SDD is applied, it does not mean an absence of oversight. Firms must still carry out monitoring of all transactions and the ongoing business relationship to detect any unusual activity. Finally, if a suspicious transaction report or suspicious activity report is filed for a client, that client must be immediately reclassified as high risk, and enhanced due diligence measures must be triggered. SDD is a risk-sensitive measure, not a shortcut, and must be applied with caution and clear justification. Even when simplified due diligence is applied, core CDD measures must still be followed, with some adjustments. These may include using less intensive methods for verifying identity, delaying certain procedures, or reducing how often updates and monitoring take place. However, oversight is still required. SDD is about scaling due diligence based on risk, not skipping it entirely. Firms must always document their rationale and stay alert to any changes in client risk. Additional resources on client due diligence are available on the ICPAC website. These include the Guide Best Practices for AML/CFT Compliance, which provides an extensive list of due diligence measures a firm may undertake, and the Guidance on KYC Documents, which sets out a non-exhaustive list of documents to be collected by ICPAC members across various jurisdictions. The guidance also offers links to useful resources such as official registrars of companies, beneficial ownership registers, BORIS, for all EU member states, the Public Register of Authentic Identity and Travel Documents Online, PRODO, consolidated sanctions lists, most wanted lists, high-risk jurisdiction watch lists, and information on electronic evidence. Both documents can be found on the ICPAC website under the Monitoring and Compliance tab within the section Compliance Guides. In addition, ICPAC's Monitoring and Compliance team has compiled a set of frequently asked questions, FAQs, which can also be accessed under the Monitoring and Compliance tab within the section FAQ. Part 5 will cover the reliance on third parties. I hope you found this useful. For any queries you may contact us at compliance@icpac.org.cy. Thank you and goodbye. I hope you found this useful. For any queries you may contact us at compliance@icpac.org.cy. Thank you and goodbye.